So, Whit, how are you this evening?
Not too bad. Kids are asleep, so I am off mom duty for a little bit, which is
You're
good.
off, Mom. Now, is there a light? You just turn it off and you go back to
Oh
biker, babe. It's
God, I
just like,
wish
I'm
I
done.
could. That
Back
would
to
be
biker.
epic to have that kind of thing. I would use that more than probably what I'm supposed to.
Mom is off duty. Boy, wouldn't
Have
that
me
be
on lookout.
nice? So, those of anyone that's following that's not familiar with you, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself as we get started?
Heck yeah. So I am somewhat of a new rider, but I started a motovlog. Oh man, it's 2021, so early 2020, and I share my moto adventures throughout the country, and then some of I guess my perspective on being a younger female rider with young kids. So more of that mom side inside of it.
Awesome. And you've got the new show, right? The
Yep.
mom. Yeah,
Just
that's awesome.
started last month or so, the Moto Mom live stream. So I'm trying to share some very inspirational, inspiring, kick-ass women. I'm not sure if I can.
Say what you want.
Okay. It's like
The
I
kids
probably
are
shouldn't ask you the
asleep. They didn't
question,
hear it.
but they literally are. They're amazing women, and so just showcasing their stories and what they're doing in the motorcycle industry while still providing for their family and raising their family. So
I mean,
it's
I think that's the thing that's amazing is that I think people forget that moms, have a life. Everyone thinks that you put your mom hat on and you wear it for 30 years or whatever. That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned you're a new rider, but I feel like that's not quite true.
I can't give myself enough credit because we received, so I say my husband and I, we got our motorcycle license probably about 8, 9 years ago
Okay.
and bought a '06 night train so we could share. But we rarely rode it. I think I could count on both hands the amount of times I actually rode the bike myself. And so once we started having kids, or having my son pretty much, it sat in the garage. He went on deployment. We sold the bike so that we didn't have a loan or a lease on it, just to kind of save financially, and took a good 4 or 5 year hiatus until 2019. I bought his custom Fat Boy for him, and then about 2 or 3 months later, bought my Sportster. So, and then we found out 2 months later I was having another kid, so that sat in the garage for a little bit longer. And that this was technically 2020 was my first full year of riding because I think I had
Wow.
3, maybe 4 months max in 2009 with
Now, you probably don't, but do you have an idea of how much you rode before this like first full season?
no,
No,
it was minimal. It was very minimal just because when we did
because
buy the bike, I found out 2 weeks later. So it just kind of sat in the garage and waited until I could possibly do it. And then when I was finally felt comfortable enough to start riding again, it was minimal, just going back and forth to work. And that was kind of the extent. So yeah, I would say less than 1,000 miles, honestly.
and you came back with a vengeance. I
Oh,
mean, there's just no, and we've joked about this, but your rider resume in a year is probably what most people do in a short lifetime. It's crazy.
I took and ran with it. That's for sure. There's so many things
Yeah.
I wanted to do.
I think it's funny too when you watch your channel. It's like every time there's a different bike. Like I know for me, it was a really hard. I still remember getting on my first manual bike because I started on a scooter.
Okay.
And I remember it being like a big, I went to a KLR 650 and I remember it being like the scariest and most exciting thing in the world because it was on a real bike.
Yep.
And that's not to say that the scooter wasn't fun, but it wasn't the same
effect.
experience.
Yeah.
You can't wheelie a scooter. I've tried.
I mean, you probably can. I don't know. I've tried.
Technically, I guess you could. But I know for me, like that advancement was really tough in that year. it amazes me that you've just taken that on. I mean, you've ridden a Challenger, which, you know, guys my size are afraid to ride, and you're
I'm just
throwing it
editing the photo
around.
or the videos now, so that one was a fun one to ride. I pushed myself out of my comfort zone in that one. So
And
awesome.
and I think that that's really the great thing about your story is that you've just embraced it, and it's a genuine, you're a genuine person. You're not trying to be somebody. And I think that that comes through so heavily in your channel.
But I think it
Um,
helps from like my husband's side of it. So when I started my moto vlog, I was just comfortable sharing everything from my sportster. But there
mhm.
was one evening where he's like, I don't think you've ever rode my fat boy before. And I go, no, I sat on it, but that's it. And so he goes, take it for a ride around the block. Oh shoot. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm gonna try to do this. So I rode it and I was just gonna go around the block and I did. He got video of me flying by, but then I was like, you know what? See ya, I'm going out for a little bit longer of a ride. And came back about like
Nice.
20 to 30 minutes later and realized, you know what? I can do it. It's once you know the like how to ride a bike, it doesn't really different from one bike to the next. Yes, things are like setup wise a little bit different, or I don't know, who knows why. But at the same time, it comes down to the basics. You know how to put it in gear and ride, and
Mhm.
all bikes serve that same purpose. So it just happens to be a larger engine and a larger gas tank. And I think mentally that's what I had to kind of knock down that barrier and try to do. And once I did the Fat Boy, I tried renting the Heritage, and then I rode Street Glide, and then I rode a Chieftain, and then I rode a Challenger. And I was like, okay, what other bigger bikes can I ride? Because these are fine compared to my little sporty. I don't
It's
know.
funny too, because once you, like you said, once you get to a bigger bike, there's really not, I think once you cross that plane, there's nothing holding you back. It doesn't matter what it is at that point.
Yep. Just
Because
matters the terrain that you get put on. So I was stuck in gravel roads in Tennessee this summer on the Street Glide trying to turn it around because I didn't know if I could. The roads out in Tennessee don't always seem to go very like straight and boxy. Like they just
okay.
curve and twist. At least that's what it feels like out there. So it's like if I keep riding this road, I'm not sure where I'm going to end up. So I had to pull into this driveway and really quickly realized it was gravel and almost tipped the bike and dropped it and just didn't really thought I could turn it like my Sportster and be like, all right, this is fine. And I had to slow down and think about it going, no, this is quite a larger bike to do just that. So there's
Yeah,
been moments where I've had it.
we went horseback riding on a trip this year, and we went down probably a 12-mile road, and you know, we didn't get divorced over it because somebody gave bad directions. We don't blame them. But it's really funny. We're riding, and all of a sudden the road ends, but the GPS is like, "You have 12 miles more." I'm like, "We're gonna die. They're never gonna find us. We're gonna be dead." We picked that bike up once when we dropped it in a parking lot, and it took the two of us, and I don't ever want to do it again. I was done. I was like, I was just ready to go get help. I'll take my man card. I'll surrender it and just go get me some help.
Well, that's where when Chris and I first got our first bike, we were so excited. Well, one, we didn't really have our license. The dealership just kind of let us drive the bike away without even asking it before they sold it to us. So Chris White Knuckle drove the thing home. I was like, okay, we made it to the garage. We're good. So we pulled it into like a church parking lot, and I said, all right, I really want to get on this bike. I want to ride it. So didn't know that you really need the throttle in order to go. And I thought I could just ride it like an actual bike. And about 2 seconds later, I didn't have any give to it and just tipped the bike over. Not even 2-3 hours fresh after buying it. So like that's where like my confidence in it just slowly kind of ticked away because I didn't think I was capable of doing it. And I've tried like 2 or 3 other times to get it out of our old garage that we had. Couldn't get it over that like cement lip and ended up dropping it once or twice more too. So, and that was a night train, so a soft tail model. Wasn't too bad, but I needed his help in order to pick it up.
Yeah.
But It's
That's
hard
the
to
one thing I found in riding that I'm very conscious of the parking lot I'm pulling into. Now, I
Mhm.
forget plenty of times, but I try to be
Yep.
conscious.
Either that or
That's
it's like my butt just needs to stay in the seat. As long as it stays in the seat, then we're okay. Because I just don't have the upper body strength that I think I do in order to maneuver the bike. So
well, there's been plenty of times where we've had it loaded where Katie had to push it like she's the prospect. She's pushing the fairing so we could get out because we were, nosed in. Yeah, that's so you started with the night train was your first bike, and
yep.
then you got your own Sportster. That's a 1200.
Yes, but in between there, I actually bought a CB 500. I think 500 to a Honda. It was like a 1970s, and I was gonna take it apart over the winter, create like this little cafe brat style racer bike, and sold that guy because we were pregnant and it's just sitting in the garage and I couldn't do it. So
Nothing
I had that
stops
for
you.
a little stint, but I realized quickly that changing the oil on that thing, I don't even know how. I think Tony Cox has a bike that he's doing like that right now too, or something. So I give people credit wrenching on those old bikes because even parts and everything are harder to come by. I don't know what I thought about doing, but it was fun. I wish I just had more time to do it. Now I'm regretting that we sold it, and I wish I had it out in my garage. But
yeah, and I think that's. I know people that really enjoy that, but to me, it's like I just want to ride. I don't like cleaning my bike, let alone working on my bike. And I know
that was my
sounds
only
so
bike
wimpy
too. Yeah. So I don't mind if I have a project bike and then a bike to actually ride, but when it's just the bike that I have to ride, I couldn't commit to just knocking the bike down and letting it sit there for whoever knows long. So
yeah, there's a lot to be said for a bike that starts every single time.
I had to kickstart it. There was no electric start. So
oh really? So you went hardcore. Holy
that was
cow.
broken. So yeah.
Oh, so you really did live this pretty extensive biker life quickly.
Yes. Yep.
Now, what year's your sport? Your Sportster's an anniversary, right?
100th. Yep. 100th anniversary edition. So, yep. That was kind of the token. It feels like just a little gem in our garage that I kind of want to keep to pass down to the kids too when they get older. And if they want to start riding, I think it's just a good overall bike to do that. And I can't mess
awesome.
it up. So it feels like a collector.
Guess that brings us into the elephant in the room about what a Sportster is capable of. So I'm just gonna wow. Yeah. So tell everyone what you did on your Sportster, the bike that's only good for going to the bars.
Pretty much. Well, it's not even like the new ones right now too. It was the last of the frame mounted or engine mounted bikes or something like that, the frame. So I've never ridden one of the new Sportsters, and I'm kind of curious to see even the difference between that. But I took my bike and did my first Iron Butt Association ride. So I did 1,000 miles in 24 hours this summer around Lake Michigan, which is super fantastic to do. So, yeah.
Wow. That just goes to show you that the bike's the excuse. Wow.
You can ride. There's people that ride like little 50 cc's longer distances than that on some of the bikes in the Iron Butt Association, which, yeah.
That's my goal for this year. You've set the bar high.
Good.
And when I fail miserably, I don't know what my excuse is.
Oh no, I don't think you will at all. If you're well prepared and planned for it, and you know your stops, you just have to ride the ride, and that's it. That's all it's really given. You're prepared enough to do it too.
No, a lot of people say that to do that successfully, you want to kind of ride the speed limit, because then it sort of becomes that break point of you're burning fuel.
Yep.
Did you find that to be true?
My little bike was in the 80s most of the interstate highway riding, so that I spaced out so I think it's like a 125 max for that little peanut tank. I spaced most of my gas stops to be at 100 or less, or there might have been like one that was just a little bit more. But even if I was losing that gas mileage, I still was in that comfort zone of not having any fuel.
Okay. That would be my biggest fear, is pushing it, because I've almost done that a few times. That's not fun.
Well,
That's not
through
fun
the
at all.
iron butt, you have to stop every 350 miles or less to get a gas.
Okay.
So even if you do have I don't even know some of the
No.
bikes, what they can handle, but 350 is the max that you have to stop and fill up with gas and get it, or at least get a
Okay.
receipt so where you're at. So
Okay. Well, and I guess so it keeps you on a pace that you can't fake it. I got you.
yep. You can't just say that you went to some location or a different location. There has to be some kind of tracking mechanism. So like your GPS or your tracking app is going to show where you were at, but physically they need to see that you stopped there as well. So that's why they have the paper receipt plus the either Google Maps, or I use Spotwalla is what they use through the iron butt to pretty much track my GPS coordinates too. So
Okay. I didn't realize it'd become that complicated.
well, because you could pretty much fake it if you wanted to. Like you could take your car and just use Spotwalla and
Sure.
track GPS and say that you did it. But in order to show that you were there, you have to show the odometer with the gas receipt so that it shows where your bike is actually located. And I went one step further and took, like, my phone has the picture tracker or something. I forget what the actual app is called right off the head, but it shares the exact GPS like coordinates and time frame and date and all of that in the actual photo that you take too. So I was just kind of doubling up my efforts.
Nice. Now, would you do it again?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would.
Because we did 7:30 in a day, and
Nice.
if it wasn't so late coming back, we went to Pittsburgh for lunch because my wife's crazy. That's what happens when you're
So I love
quarantined.
your wife for that idea.
You just come up with stupid ideas. We should go to Pittsburgh for lunch because,
And that's
why
what
wouldn't
most of
we?
the people on the Iron Butt do. They find this random thing that they want to drive to or go to or visit to, whether it is just a lunch out in Texas or wherever, barbecue, and then they haul butt back for that. So
Yeah, and I kept thinking about that. I was like, if we were just a little bit more prepared, it wouldn't have been. So I think we're going to do a 4-day weekend just to try it.
Yep.
Go out and then take a day or two to kind of mosey on back in case we don't.
Yep, that's smart. And that's
I give you a lot of credit, man, because that's 7:30 the next day. I mean, I wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but it wasn't necessarily. You felt it. I mean, there's definitely
yeah.
Now, do you have a fairing on your bike? I can't remember. Do you have one?
I just have the windshield, that 100th anniversary windshield on it. So there wasn't much to the bike. And then riding some of those touring bikes this summer and this fall, I was like, oh, now I know the luxury of having all of that wind blocking. You're not getting fatigued, anything like that. So yeah, I would still do it again.
I took the windscreen off mine and went to a clear view shield with the vent, and I couldn't believe the difference in head bobble. Because you don't. I mean, you do. I'm not saying you personally, but you don't realize how much that little stuff. It's like having the wrong helmet. You don't realize after all day of riding what that does to you.
Exactly. Especially
it's
with my modular too. I didn't realize how heavy my helmet was, and plus you have my GoPro equipment on it. It got to the point at the end of it where I'm like, I just need to take this dang thing off. Like,
get it off.
You got to find stuff. Like, there's always something that like eats at you. So I lost my cramp buster because I don't have cruise control on that bike. I lost my only cramp buster.
Oh, geez, I just thought about that. Oh,
yep. And so I had to go the rest of the evening into the early morning hours without it. And that was the one thing I like fixated on. I was like, dang it, I should have brought another one. So now I have two of them on my bike. Of course, I've got one in the saddlebags and one on my bike. But there's always just kind of certain things that pick at you that you kind of have to keep yourself entertained. And that's one way to do it. So.
Now, did you have a comm or anything for music, or were you just?
So I had my Senna, and then I had my husband's Senna too as a backup. So I went through. Actually, I think my Senna kept up for the entire day, pretty much.
Okay.
The whole route. So I just slipped through radio stations, and then I just had it connected to Bluetooth to tell me if I was turning or not. So.
Wow. I just think it's really cool because I feel like if you went to a bigger platform bike,
I would be
I'm
in
kind
pure
of
heaven.
afraid. Yeah, I'm kind of afraid of what you're gonna do next if you get a bigger platform bike.
Like, yeah.
That's crazy.
When it's built, like I see the reasons for those touring bikes and then what they're made of from riding my little sporty
Well,
Excel.
it's funny because everybody gives us crap about our bike being like an old man's bike, and I'm like, yeah, it is, but I'll tell you what, when you tour on that thing, and especially since we had it fit us, like I've got 12-inch bars and we've got legends, and you start to realize I was never a Harley fan at all, and here I am sitting wearing a Harley hat, and I joke with my wife that she kind of took me kicking and screaming because we had the Suzuki and we were looking for something more comfortable. And once you ride those bikes, you're just like, okay, there's, I'll just turn in the cool card. We can just hammer miles on this thing. It's different. So now you've ridden a fair amount of bikes. Is there a bike that stands out to you that you think could be a future bike? Like, are you ready to go full touring bike at this point?
I wish I could, money wise. That's what's
well,
holding me
no,
back.
I mean, all things aside
I know,
of that.
all things aside, I've rode a handful of them this riding season, but there's still bikes out there that I want to try that have piqued my interest that I haven't had a chance to yet. But this last season, I really enjoyed the Chieftain Indian. Just dash wise and the look of that darkhorse, I loved that bike. I did enjoy the Challenger, but road glide to street glide version almost like look, I've favored the Chieftain. I don't need all of that power. Like there's no purpose for me to have that, especially when you compare it to my little sporty.
But what did you feel with the fixed fairing? Because that seems to be
it kind of bothered me a little bit, but I got used to it and didn't even realize that it was different.
Okay.
I just realized that I can't feel any wind. I can't feel anything like against. You're gonna have the option to do the what am I looking for? The word.
Oh, the powered screen. It has the powered windscreen.
You adjust it for that sake. So like you can definitely feel the difference once you change that up. But for the most part, that whole bike is just another bike for me. I loved it, but I don't know if it would be sitting in my garage. There are so for this year, I want to try out the BMW GS 1200, I think it is. Like there's a lot of people that do touring on that. There's so many other brands of bikes. I actually want to get on one of the new 2020 or 2021 Gold Wings just for the sake of being on one. I don't know. I'm not going to know until I'm actually on.
That was, you know what I mean? By far the bike I wanted to buy. I was sold that I was going to buy a Goldwing. I didn't care. I was going to buy a Goldwing. And the only thing that took me away from the newer model, but the 21s have a bigger tour pack now.
Okay.
But that was the only downside was you looked at the Ultra and then you looked at that and it was like, what do I do? It holds my helmet. What's the rest of it hold?
But I don't know. I won't know until But there's so many out there that I just can't commit to yet until I try riding some of these different bikes. And then once I've got a good idea in my head of, and this is not just a short test ride. This is where I want to put 200-300 miles, if not more, on the bike and then really know if I like it or not. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. In my head, I want to road glide, but I'm
what's that?
Now, did you ride the road glide? Because you rode the Challenger.
I have not ridden the road glide yet. I've just done the street glide. That was the only bike left available for the Eagle Rider option that I had. So yeah, didn't get a chance to road glide.
I took the Road Glide Ultra out. That was the first touring Harley I rode, and I was convinced I was going to kill myself. And then I realized how nimble it was. I was like, all right, I can do this. This is all right.
My goal is to head down to St. Louis. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Queen Sit. She's got a motovlog out there as well. But she rides a road glide, so I just want to go
With
down
those
there.
crazy bars. I love those bars.
Maybe just beg her to be like, can I borrow your bike for a little bit? Or like find something out there and we both can ride road glides.
Just tell her that you'll watch the bikes when she goes in to do whatever she needs to do. But just leave your keys here in case I have to move it.
Yeah, then we'll be fine. She'll trust me. It'll be good. But no, I gotta find something like that I can just at least test out and ride and see if I like it. But yeah.
Yeah, they're it's weird. Well, you worked for Harley for a bit, right?
A dealership, local dealership. Yep. Not corporate, but
not corporate. Yeah. We all wish we worked for corporate.
Well, I'm in the state of Wisconsin, which is home to Harley, but no, I worked at a local dealership doing the marketing and events for pretty much about a year, almost a year and a half. So
nice.
Yeah.
I was at the 95th Harley convention and had no interest in motorcycles. I was there for business. And I couldn't understand. We couldn't get a hotel. We had no idea why. Mm-hmm. And I went in and I'm like, I turn on the news and it's like, oh, the Pennsylvania chapter's arriving. I'm like, what is this? This is like the coolest thing in the world. But I had no idea. That is on the bucket list. I want to get to the museum. I think that would be really cool.
You need to. And when you do, let me know because it's not too far away from me. I'd love to meet you. I love going there.
Yeah, I want to get my picture with the bike in front of the shed, and then and it's weird. I'm not a motorhead by any stretch, but there's something about taking the bike home that I think is neat because we're not that far from York. I've been to York, but I haven't been to Milwaukee, and I was like, oh, we got to do it.
You need to. And then you need to have, there's a couple like places and there's so many craft beer breweries around Milwaukee too.
Yeah,
you have to make it a full weekend for sure.
Okay.
It's worth it. But the museum is fantastic. And they always have a different, I want to say changed out. I don't know how to describe it, but each season they have a different thing on the other side of the actual museum. There was one, I did a class how to put together one of the motors too. So there's always something there to go see besides.
That's got to be cool. Now you rode the Livewire. What are your thoughts?
Heck yes. It was fantastic. I loved it. It's a completely different biking experience for me. I thought I was just going to do a test ride. There's the Milwaukee dealership down there that had to, and I saw a post. So I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to reach out and see if it's possible to just do a test ride. So I got there. She's like, okay, here's the bike. Go out and have fun. You got 100 and some odd miles. I don't even know what the max of. It was a fully charged bike. So
I'm so
goes,
jealous.
Just bring it back to when you're done. I was like, wait, so I could take this bike and just go? It was so cool. To not have to think about going through the gears was different at first, but once you get used to it, it's an absolute blast. That sucker can go fast.
There were a lot of people when I did I don't know what they call it, the Livewire experience, where they had the trailer. It showed up at like different places. Yep. And I did it twice. I did it once and I drug Katie back to do it the second time to bring my GoPro, but I didn't have a mic. And I kind of wish I did because I was screaming like a kid. I was like, I'm not a spirited rider by any means. And I looked down and I was doing 75 miles an hour on, I hope the motor company's not watching, on like a 35 mile an hour road. And the lead rider blocked me because he told me, he goes, look, if you want to have some fun, you were here yesterday, take the first bike and I'll go as fast as you can go. Well, apparently that capped out at a certain point. That bike scared the hell out of me. I've never, it's insane. And like you said, coming from a scooter, I had a scooter for half of my first year of riding. I went through two of them. I was surprised at how much more fun taking all that away is, but at the same time, it's still it's the best of the experience without the worst of not that it's the worst of the experience, but it's and there were a lot of guys there that I was talking to that had, street glides and, different bikes. And they're like, why can't I get this on my bike? Like, it's like being a little kid again.
It is.
It's something very fun about it.
I loved it because it was quiet too. So I took it on the back country roads and just absolutely loved it because there was something about just the quietness to it that you're pretty much just out in the serene. Like, I don't mind. My husband's Fat Boy has screaming eagle pipes on it, and it is loud. Like, you can hear it coming down like 2 or 3 or 4 blocks. Like, even my kids can recognize it. But just flipping that on its head and just enjoying the peacefulness to it, it was something that I felt I didn't know I realized that I wanted until I actually rode that bike. So
I had a 400cc Suzuki scooter, a Bergman, and with one of the tall screens, and I could hear the birds in the trees. And I always thought that was cool. And that's what that reminded me of. It was like it was very different. It was very strange. You know, it was, I think it's a shame because the price point keeps it away from the average rider, but the technology is just insane.
It's fantastic. I know.
Yeah.
Eventually, like, I even want to, I'm looking at electric bikes for dirt bikes for like my kids too, but I know there's a ton of different options out there too, but just something that I don't even know if it's lower maintenance or not. I have to do my research yet, but I know that there's options from that side of it, or even electric dirt bikes. That's another one on my list that I need to.
And I think that it's great because I would think, and my kids never rode, but I would think it would be less intimidating because I'm sure you've seen Mad and Dad. Mad's got that little electric bike and she just whips that thing.
Super cute. I love every video she posts.
Yeah. You know, and then I think that's what people forget is that it's not as intimidating. You know, it's not grumbly and it's not, you know, it's fun, you know, riding a bike with pipes is fun to a point, you know, but there's also that point of, you know, having the electric bike. It's just, and the technology is unbelievable. What I thought was really cool was I'm going to say it wrong, but what is it called? Where the seat rumbles. It has that feedback where when it's on, the seat kind of rumbles a little bit. I was like, that's the
cool. Only thing you can tell when it's actually on. You're talking about the livewire. So so before I left the dealership, she flipped on the switch and says, "You're running." And I was like, there's no way. There's no way. And then once I took it off and pulled off to a side street so that I could like take some photos of it and got back on the bike. And that's just like, you feel a slight pulse and that's it for the bike. And even then I don't even know.
It's a really cool technology. I guess what's next? I mean, you've been to Sturgis, which was incredible. I mean, you've done, like I said, you took my bucket list in a year off.
Just like checked them off.
Catch up. Yeah. I was like, oh, Whit's done that. Oh, that's good.
Well, there were so many, and this is the thing with last year, I had plans to do some of these motorcycle campouts that all got canceled. And so I still kept my dates, so to speak, of when they were scheduled and just did my own thing. And I feel like almost it was kind of better in a sense because I can make up my own schedule. So I did like an 7 day tour of the West and stopped at Sturgis, rented a bike, but then went out to Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, came back, went through Sturgis again to check in on like some of the motovloggers that were meeting up there, Blacktop, Devil, and those crew. But then went back home for that. And then I did Zion National Park, Bryce Canyon, and then the Smoky Mountains. I rode the Tail of the Dragon. It's these things that I've always watched within these last like 4 or 5 years and seen people do that I was like, there's no reason why I couldn't do them myself. And so I found
that's a really good I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go for it.
You've ridden the Tail of the Dragon. I have no qualms in saying that it scares me, especially riding a full touring bike.
Yes. And I just did a street glide the day before. I was not comfortable like at all on that bike. That's the first time I ever did it. That was my one personal goal of last year, was to get on a street glide. That was my top thing to do. And I was kind of forced into that situation because that was the only bike available to rent. And so I was like, well, it's meant to be. have to ride this bike. So I
Okay.
rode it. And then I was out in the area. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to get another chance to do this. Probably I will, but I don't want to regret not doing it. So I rode the Cherahalla Skyway the first day, went up to Knoxville for a little bit, and then kind of found a hotel in Maryville, I think it is. I don't know, not Maryville. Somewhere down in like actual Maryland. I don't know.
It doesn't matter. We're not fact checking.
I don't
It could
even
be
know where I
anywhere.
was. All
You're in
those
Graceland. It doesn't matter.
yeah, pretty much. I'd be on the opposite side. That would be fun. But I found a hotel and started like that morning because I knew it was going to be a Sunday morning, and I've heard how like packed it gets on the weekends.
That's my biggest
Cars
concern.
and
Yeah.
bikes, that I was terrified just to ride it myself. And I was like, I'm going to throw so many other bikes and things into the mix. I couldn't do it. So I was there even before the Killboy, I think, studio, all of that wasn't even open yet. And it was raining, and I was like, you know what? I'm kind of forced to go through this route unless I take a really long way back up to Pigeon Forge. So I was like, I'm just going to take my time. I'm going to do it and see how it goes. And I think I could count on two hands the people that I actually saw and the cars that I let go by me for the sake of just enjoying their Sunday cruise through it. But it was not as bad as what I thought it was, but I only went like 25 miles an hour. So.
Wow. And that's the speed limit, right? I mean, it's not much. If it is, it's not much more.
I don't think it is much more than like 30, maybe, I don't know. I did 20 and that was my max. There was like no lean angle to the bike. I just kind of kept it upright and got used to it and got comfortable with it. But yeah, it's just one of those things I need to check off the list. But the roads around the Tail of the Dragon, I think, were even more challenging than the actual Tail of the Dragon itself. There was one on
the Moonshiners there, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
There's a road called Happy Valley Road that's literally like a hairpin, just completely going back the other direction. And I was going on a downhill in the fog and the rain with a car behind me. That was the most terrified of the weekend that I rode. That was some of those back roads where kind of catch you off guard and make it more fun. So
yeah. I mean, and that's interesting perspective, because was always my thing. Like, do you get down there and does it either not live up to the hype, or did you make a stupid decision? You know what I mean?
No, I'm glad I did it. But to say, would I do it again? I think I would do it if I was with other people that haven't experienced it before. But there's so many other spots that around the Smoky Mountains area that I didn't even have a chance to touch and ride. So
yeah, that's what we were going to do when we went to MMM, was come back through the Smokies. And that's still on the bucket list, because we rode through the Adirondacks a little bit on the bottom side, and then we rode through the Catskills, and that was phenomenal.
That's where I was going to end up. For Tennessee, I was supposed to go up there for it's Babes Ride Out event. That's where they have their Babes Ride Out East. So I was going to ride through the Catskills. I was planning on doing it, but eventually I still am going to attend that event whenever it does happen. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to head over to the Smokies then and try out that area instead. But I've heard that's gorgeous. I am excited to ride that eventually.
Yeah, Katie, we went to Woodstock, the fairgrounds of Woodstock, which I'm a huge music fan, so that was a big deal to me.
Yep.
And the ride to there from, can't remember where it was, but it was basically the bottom of the Adirondacks, and it was the most fun I've ever had on a bike. Like, it was, I'm sure in my head, I'm dragging my knee. I wasn't, but it was just this, it was just so much fun just whipping the bike around, and enjoying the terrain difference.
Yep.
And that's what a lot of people say too, is that the Dragon's gotten its fame, if you will, but it doesn't, once you've done it, you're like, I've done it,
Yeah. I think that's, for me, that's kind of one of those lists, but I enjoyed riding out in, so I started in Las Vegas, rode all the way up to Zion and Bryce Canyon, just riding through Arizona and Utah and that part. Like, I was just floored by the difference like in Smoky Mountains compared to Zion.
Mhm.
Like it was fantastic and majestic, and I wish I could have stopped and hiked, but then I wasn't riding, so it was a catch-22. But I'll be back.
Well, yeah, and it's hard too because on the bike you can only carry so much. We went through that. You either wear your boots or you don't wear your boots, and
Yep.
you can't carry multiple pairs of shoes, and you kind of have to make a.
Mm-hmm.
There's an abandoned hotel in Woodstock.
Okay.
It's supposed to be like really cool. It's a really cool hike, but in biking boots, you're like, yeah, no, passing that one.
I found some like flat ones that kind of roll up and are pretty thin, but even still, I don't know. Once I'm on the bike, I just want to ride. I just want to.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter like if I'm getting to a destination or not. I just enjoy being on the bike. So for me, I'm gonna ride until I can't no more. And that was the sick. Like I started, like I think once I checked in at 10 o'clock in the morning, I didn't get back to Vegas until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, I think. Just because I was just enjoying myself, and I got so far out that I was like, oh, I have to come back now. Like there's a whole different ball game riding in the canyons in the night, but it was fun. So
that is awesome. Now, do you and I know your husband's deployed, and I appreciate not only his service, but I know it takes a significant toll on you and your family. So thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys get to ride together much?
We did. So we snuck in 1 or 2 motorcycle dates before he
answered my own
left.
question because I did.
Yeah. We try to as much as we possibly can, but we're hoping next year, because it's going to be our 10-year anniversary, and it's always around the Sturgis timeframe. I would like for him to experience some of the riding out in the Black Hills area. So that's a goal of ours if we can get childcare and whatnot planned out. But yeah, absolutely. If the experiences that I've had this year haven't like done enough for me that I just keep putting things on the list, it's added more to his list now that I'm like, I need to go take you here. I need to take you here. So yeah, he's ready to be back and start riding again with me. So.
I think that's awesome that you guys can do it together, because I know that that's the thing Katie and I have talked about. We spent, I guess it was our 3rd date, we went out on a ride, and she's never ridden, but she rides with me.
Nice.
And I still have that like great selfie, from it. And it's like, it's amazing what that can do for a relationship. I mean, it's become our thing. We always joke that like, with everything that's gone on, it's like, we can get rid of the car. We got 2, just keep the bike.
Right.
We don't have
if
a sofa, so
kids,
be it.
That would be my option right now. Even in the middle of winter in Wisconsin, I would try it.
Yeah. Because I always joke with her, because I work from home, like, we can get rid of a car. Yeah, whatever. A car's a car.
It's totally
it's a cage.
Fine. It's justified.
So I had asked Geared Raven this, and I thought her answer was great. And I think that your answer will certainly be in part of that. But what do you tell the little girl? What do you tell the woman that's sitting there at the dealership or watching people ride and say, I'd like to do that, but I don't know.
If she's at the dealership already, she's already made the first step into
there you go.
Something. So all the power to her if it's connecting with those individuals. But I say, if you want to ride, just go out and try it. Find somebody. This is where you make those connections, whether it is through social media, find those like-minded individuals that maybe you connect with that are riders, and lean on them and try to see what they experience and see if you can do it for yourself. But for me, you got to start somewhere, and whether it is through those individuals or somebody that you've never met before that you're trying to take a leap of faith and go for it, I just say start. You're not going to know until you try. There are some individuals that have reached out to me that thought about getting their motorcycle license, did the class, and said, maybe this isn't for me. But I give you all the power to at least try.
You try.
Because you're going to regret if you at least didn't give it that in a sense. And you're going to wonder till God knows when. If it's
now, in Wisconsin, is the class free to do that?
No, you all have to pay for that.
Because that's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There are some dealerships that might like refund your riding you buy a bike or something like that, but you have to pay for the course.
Because when I lived in Pennsylvania, I live in New Jersey now, it was free, totally free. And I used to tell people, like, what do you have nothing to do next weekend? Just go learn to ride a motorcycle. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yep.
You crash their bike, it ain't your bike, you know? It doesn't get better than that. You know?
Yeah, no, you all have to pay here. So you kind of have to make, well, you don't, I guess, I don't know the rules from 8-9 years ago and if they've changed or not, but like even if you just want to get out in a parking lot and try, or even on a dirt bike and see if it's something that you like, depending on how old they are too. Who knows?
That's fair. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking time out. So I guess now it's your time. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to plug? Where can people find you? Because what I'm interested to see is, let's have this conversation in 2 years when you've ridden to Europe and you've ridden to Russia and the Road of Bones, and there's the Whitney Meza documentary and the book. Just remember me. I want a signed copy when you get a book.
Yes. And I want a sidecar for my kids, because that would be even more epic for the adventure.
Wouldn't it?
Oh, it would be. For me, this coming year, if all things go according to plan, I've got my large state of the United States, or large map of the United States. I'm going to try to attempt a 48 states in 10 days challenge with the Iron Butt Association. So that is my
back hurts. Can I just have a moment?
That is my goal. So it's going to take me, technically I have it scheduled for 9 days. So I have a 1 day gap if I need to do an oil change or whatever else that gets going. But yeah, so
now,
that's the goal for.
That's interesting. Now, what is that? Does that mean you have to touch the state, or do you have to be in a certain amount?
So you just have to have a valid receipt, whether that's getting a pack of gum or a tank of gas. Most like for me, it's just gas stops. Okay. So you have to find a gas stop in each of the states. So like when you're up in the like northeast side or the eastern side of the area, you got a lot of states to go and roll through, but you have to at least put your bike somewhere and get a dated receipt showing that you were there. And then you've touched all 48 states.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're going to retire after next year? You give it up?
No, that's just crochet? The start.
Like,
I'm curious from a long distance ride if I'm going to enjoy it or not. And that's one way to see if I do. And if it's not, then it's taking on other aspects, whether it is, from a road racing side of it. I would love to do a track day and try some of those sport bikes. For me, it's just they're all 2 wheels and even some of the 3 wheels. I want to ride and see what I enjoy most. And that's my adventures for 2021. And hopefully that's all able to accommodate it all. But we'll see.
Wow. And here I am like, I want to go to Canada. I don't feel cool anymore.
You can't go to the border.
Awesome.
At least maybe you can.
Yeah, that was the worst part about being in Niagara Falls. We were riding up into the park, and Katie's like, "Look, they have a Ferris wheel." I'm like, "That's Canada. Like that river doesn't look that deep, but it's another country." That's a beautiful area to ride in. I would highly recommend if you get a chance.
Yeah.
Now, so you're going to do those. Yep. Are you going to do it on the Sportster? Are you going to take a bigger bike?
I'm looking at different bikes, more touring style bikes, something with a larger gas tank, really, because stopping every 100 miles is probably not as efficient. It is doable for a saddle sore and whatnot, but even I know some of the guys that do the Iron Butt rallies, and on a Sportster, they have like an auxiliary tank or something like that. So I would either have to venture that route or look at it more touring style. So we'll see what I can come up with, but I got winter to plan it out, so we'll see.
That's awesome. Well, that's what I meant to ask you. When you did your Iron Butt, did you take an auxiliary tank? Like, did you take even a backup?
I took a really small, I don't even know how many ounces it holds.
It's like a thermos kind of things that I've seen. Yeah.
Yep. That was like $10 off of Amazon. I purchased it, and it came in handy when I was all the way up in the evening. And the gas station, even though it was 24 hours, said it was open, it was closed. So I probably had enough to get by, but I would have been really squeaking it. So that came in handy just to have a little bit of a extra jump in fuel mileage.
It was all about planning, right?
Yeah,
That's
it was, and it
awesome.
worked out. But I had to show that was the most like important timestamp for me because it showed that I was up there to make the mileage. Because if I didn't, it would have looked like I just did a complete circle around Lake Michigan, and I would have been under my mileage for that sake. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So that's the importance of it.
it was.
Nice.
Yep.
So we didn't get a chance to really talk about it, but you're also an accomplished photographer, which I think
Yes.
is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. We go gearhead on this for sure.
Yeah, we probably should stay out of that one. I just want to say L Glass for the win, Team Cannon. You're okay in my book. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. And you have your own photography business as well.
Yes.
That's
More
awesome.
weddings local, but I've had fun just trying to take self-portraits of myself with the bike. Granted, it takes a little bit more time and setup for it, but it's worth it to get those photos because I enjoy them a little bit more than my selfie on my phone. So
I was in this thing where, after getting away from shooting sports, that I thought that, like, oh, you have a phone, it's good. And it is. There's no doubt
yes.
about it. But
Yep.
then when you go back to a full frame camera, especially, you're just like, what was I thinking?
Yes. It's good,
and
but
then
like not
you go
to
down
the
that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Then you're telling the wife, I don't care, you can't take your clothes. I got to take all the camera gear.
Yes, that's necessary. At least
That's
so at least if I have a tripod, a full frame camera, and I think I had like now I'm getting geary, but a 26 to 70, I think it was. So at least I had some kind of zoom on it, and still had that depth of focus I could get. Then it was perfect in my book. But it's still a decent chunk of equipment that you have to
Well,
carry.
yeah. I mean, even if you take your GoPros, I mean, we only took the GoPros, the M50 with the kit lens, because I had the M50 at the time.
Yep.
And you're still taking up, that much real estate, which is a lot on a bike.
It is.
Now we get rid of my clothes to take the newer camera, but whatever.
I'll wear the underwear inside out the next day.
Yeah, I'll just throw the clothes out and go to Walmart. Just keep buying cheap t-shirts. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So where can people find you on social media to keep up with your adventures?
Instagram and YouTube are my two channels, at least for motovlogging. So it's Whit Meza, my first name, last name, for both my YouTube channel and my Instagram account. So
awesome.
Yep.
Well, Whit, it's been an absolute pleasure. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And I can't wait to see, and I encourage everyone to subscribe because I can't wait to see what you're going to do next year.
Thank you.
And I'll try and feel better about myself. I won't beat myself up too bad when I do that grueling 500 butt mile.
Oh gosh, no. I hope it just provides you inspiration to get out there.
No, it does. And I think
that's
what's so enjoyable about your stuff is that you're new to it and you're taking it on head on. You're not like, oh, well, I'll just ride a little bit,
Yep.
It's great. And when you were out in Sturgis, I was like, you go, girl. Like, that's how it should be.
Heaven. Yeah.
There's so many people that wait for tomorrow and tomorrow doesn't come. And I think that that's such a positive example. And thank you for being a positive role model for sure.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Whit, for your time.
All right.
Thanks, Whit.
You're welcome.